All new tonight and only on 4, a map with a lot of pins. Each one of those costing you and our schools. These all represent properties which a wealthy California man owns.
But he is not paying taxes on most of them. So News 4 investigator Chris Negus headed to L.A. to find out why he's slouching.
We're here in Southern California. Let's see if we can get some answers.
Before I made my way up this sidewalk in an exclusive Southern California neighborhood where multi-million-dollar homes are the norm, I started on a more modest block, Mueller Avenue in Ferguson.
I'm due any minute.
Inside this small home, Trishana Lawson is raising a family.
I have 2 boys.
Her rent is $5.95 a month, and it's owed to a landlord 2,000 miles away. In St. Louis County, Lawson's home is just one of 614 houses owned by a company called Raineth Housing. The taxes on Lawson's home are delinquent, and on at least 558 Raineth properties, the story is the same. On many homes, the taxes haven't been paid for 3 years. News 4 Investigates compiled a list of every St. Louis County property owned by Raineth Housing and determined more than $1.1 million is owed to taxing districts throughout St. Louis County. The Director of Revenue explains why it matters.
When people don't pay their taxes, those districts have less revenue with which to supply services.
Good morning.
That includes school districts.
Happy Monday to you. How are you doing, beautiful?
Like Jennings, where unpaid real estate taxes and fees on Raineth houses total more than $268,000.
Stay in line, stay in line.
More than half that money belongs to schools like Fairview Elementary.
Would that amount of money make a real impact?
The amount of funds that you discussed, it would make a tremendous impact because that would be the equivalent of 2 to 3 teachers, maybe even more, in funding.
Dr. Art McCoy's district isn't the only one that's owed. Unpaid taxes and fees on Raineth homes in the Ferguson-Florissant district total nearly $250 grand. Riverview Gardens, $267 grand. In Normandy, more than $257,000. If the Raineth name sounds familiar, it's because News 4 Investigates began asking questions in 2015, when depressed real estate values in North County led to a buying spree. On this street alone, they own this one, this house, and this one too, and this one, and last but not least, this one. But now, with debts that have a direct impact on local taxpayers piling up, I headed west to California and sat down with Raineth's CEO, Ed Renwick, to ask about all the houses he bought.
The vast majority of those are delinquent in taxes.
Probably, yeah.
The news comes as no surprise to Renwick, and he's candid in his responses.
You owe a lot of money.
We do, and we're not happy about it. It's, we have invested, so we're behind in our taxes because we're behind in our profitability.
From his Brentwood, California living room, Renwick is alerted each time a Missouri tenant reports an issue.
Tenant says there was a piping issue down the street.
The former private equity firm partner openly admits the business is more complicated than he expected.
We were surprised at the challenges of operating the business. I mean, we rent to folks who have who don't make much money. And folks who don't make much money sometimes are short on their rent.
But you knew that going in.
Yeah, but it's one thing to know something intellectually. It's another thing to create an operating business. It's very complicated.
He insists he's raising capital to pay off the tax debt, but that assurance isn't enough to alleviate the concerns of Susan Rollins.
What's going to happen 6 months down the road or a year down the road? I'm concerned about that.
As the executive director of the county's housing authority, she's familiar with Renwick's company. On some Raineth homes, your federal tax dollars pay the rent. In 2017, those Section 8 payouts totaled more than $500,000 in St. Louis County alone.
So you wonder
legally, Rollins can't say which properties received those payments, but she reviewed her records and confirmed some Raineth properties received Section 8 payouts but failed to pay local taxes.
That just adds insult to injury, I believe. You should take even more of an interest in paying your taxes if you're receiving subsidy from the federal government for your business.
Back in L.A., Renwick says he's working on it and says failure to pay was a calculated decision because rehabbing, repairs, and maintenance are expensive. He says at the moment he's making zero. And although failure to pay taxes is bad, he sees the alternative as worse.
We had a choice. Stop investing in our tenants or fall behind in taxes, and we chose to fall behind in taxes.
And that means his tax bill is piling up with interest and penalties. Renwick sees a silver lining where others do not.
The students that you're worried about and that I'm worried about will, end of day, they are, in effect, loaning me money, right? Because I'm late on my taxes. But they're making a 24% interest rate. So end of day, the city of St. Louis will more than be whole.
So at the end of the day, they'll make more than they would have had you paid on time.
Much more.
That's the argument.
Well, it's a factual statement.
We'd rather have money on time than money 2 or 3 years delayed, because 2 or 3 years delayed delays the services.
Renwick won't be able to delay much longer. Taxes on nearly 350 of his St. Louis County properties haven't been paid in 3 years. That means St. Louis County will auction them off in August if he doesn't pay up.
The citizens of St. Louis should feel glad that, you know, if we do not pay the taxes, we will lose the houses. And so I can't get away with it.
And it doesn't stop here. Along with owning hundreds of homes in our area, Renwick's company also owns hundreds of properties in Kansas City and Cincinnati, where he also owes hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid taxes. So we are going to stay on top of this until taxpayers are made whole. Chris Negus, News 4.